welcome.
Everybody. I'm so sorry, Josh.
No, you
Welcome,
got it.
everybody. I'm so happy to see everybody. Well, I guess I can't see y'all, but I'm happy that you all chimed in and logged in with us. For those two names that are in here, the phone numbers, if you could just quickly identify yourself, that way we can, address you properly. But anyways, thanks for joining our Hyping It session here on virtually like this with us. I'm so happy that you're here. Just keep in mind everything that we can see everything you put in the chat. So let's be respectful. Let's, value everybody's opinion. Let's keep everything short, sweet, to the point. My name is Kalisha.
I'm Josh, or Mr. J.O., whatever you want to call me.
And I'm Monica.
And we have a guest host down there, Malik. He's going to unmute himself.
Hey, I'm Malik Williams.
All right. And if anybody's, we looking to get some additional guest hosts on here. So if that's something you're interested in, just let us know. Make sure we got energy and keeping everything going. I'm going to let Mr. Josh go ahead and let y'all know, what is hype?
That's a good question, Miss Kalisha. What is hype? I don't know. No, I'm joking. So hype actually stands for Helping Youth Plan for Excellence. It's a program we started years ago, and we do a lot of stage plays, a lot in performing arts, and we use kids all over the city to be a part of it. We probably, on our last play, we probably had about 2,000 or so guests from all the area high schools join us, and we're able to send a good message out to the community. Hyping It, which we're currently on now, it's basically an extension of hype since everything's virtual in the world now due to Corona, but we're able to get everybody together, talk about interesting subjects, special things that everybody's going through, and whatever we can do to kind of keep things going and enlighten the community and our youth. We try to do it here on this platform called Hyping It. And some of the special topics that we try to stick to in hype is violence, HIV and AIDS prevention, and substance abuse prevention. So we'd love to have you a part of the team. If you're interested, we'll give you some contact info later.
All right, perfect. And then we have a few special guests here today.
Yes.
Our first guest is going to be Jean Peters Baker. She's a prosecutor right here in Kansas City. So if you got some good questions for her, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer them. I think we have a video here for you all.
We do.
Violence in Kansas City is a public health epidemic. It's the pandemic with a gun. We need the health department to help us lead with their expertise. We cannot arrest our way out of this. We cannot do it. It's been tried. Now, as I've said, we have people living in our community now who've experienced trauma, and they have received little to no help. They're left to suffer on their own. They're left to figure out how to mend their own wounds, how to replace income that was lost, how to repair bullet holes in their homes. And sometimes we even leave blood at crime scenes for them to clean up. Now, this is not hopeless. We have the right players present. And those who are not here, we have the ability to engage in a new conversation with them. With continued funding for our community advocates and partnerships with this health department, I believe we can make this system better. We can reduce violence. I've seen it done here, and I've seen it done other places. So offering help and humanizing those who need help is a key factor for other cities who have actually reduced their violence. It was a key factor for us too when we did this in 2014. So we know how to do that. I believe we can do that together. I believe in this city, I believe in the people who live here, and I believe in this community.
Man, Miss Jean Peters Baker, we are sure glad to have you today. How you doing today?
Doing great. Good to see you.
That's good. You're definitely a friend to Hype and the Seacon family, I'll tell you that. So,
a friend of the Seacon family.
oh, thanks a lot. You guys do a lot for us. Were you about to say, Kalisha?
Oh, well, I was, no, go ahead, Josh, you got it.
Oh, I was going. I thought you were saying something. So tell us about yourself and your role as the Jackson County prosecutor. What does that entail for the ones that don't know?
So I kind of take maybe a non-traditional role in the job, but the role of a traditional prosecutor is to wait for police to bring you a case file, something that they have investigated. They tend not to want the prosecutor engaged in that front part of the investigation. They bring you this file, it's supposed to be all pretty, and then the prosecutor evaluates the facts and the law to see whether or not a charge is appropriate.
Mm,
And I don't quite do it like that.
okay.
I'm less of a traditional prosecutor and more of someone that believes you need to be at crime scenes. So I do require prosecutors, and I often go myself to the scene of a homicide. So you'll see us at the yellow tape working with police at the very beginning. I go to the scene myself of every fatality caused by a police officer because you can't start those investigations too soon. And it's important to have a independent set of eyes on those cases as soon as possible. And then I also believe it's important for prosecutors to be working directly with community as much as the job allows you to do that. So most recently, over the past year, I formed a community advisory board, and I have several members of the community that serve on this panel with me, and they just help me, they help advise me about policy. They help shape that policy. And they also ask me questions that they want me to seek the answers to. And sometimes it's just important to hear from community on what questions should I be asking, so you can do a better job serving the public.
Exactly. It makes a lot of sense. Like you said, being hands-on from the start instead of waiting until that information comes to your desk, so that way
Yeah.
you can have a better control over it. I like that. So, how do you feel like your relationship is with the police department?
um,
Yeah. Don't say nothing you don't want to say though. I'm just asking.
right. Um, it's really been hard. It's been really, really, really hard. Now I have multiple police departments that I work with. I
Okay.
cover all of Jackson County.
Okay.
So different police chiefs in different jurisdictions, kind of work with the prosecutor in wildly different ways.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say, though, in Kansas City, I'm not very welcome. When
Oh, really?
even at the yellow tape, I'm not very welcome at those crime scenes, and that's a newer philosophy of it's more recent in time than historical, and it's just because of that, the natural clash that's going to happen between a prosecutor and a police department. A lot of people think that we work hand in hand and we're always sort of brother and sister to each other, when sometimes it's really contentious, and we have very different points of view, not just about civilian on civilian crimes that occur, but police on civilian crimes that occur, which will cause a lot of tension.
Yeah. I know it has to be stressful for you, but I know for the community, I guess you not being so welcome means you means you're doing a lot for us and on behalf of us. So we at least appreciate you.
I appreciate that, because the job really is an honor to do, even on on the toughest days. It's really such an opportunity to change the course of how the criminal justice system is seen, and not just seen, but also how it works for communities of color who have been overrepresented in certain ways, by the criminal justice system, overrepresented as defendants, and then underrepresented at the very same time. When you're victimized by crime, it's too few of those cases are solved by police. So it's my hope is to not just talk about the building of trust, but also changing how the prosecutor views cases and how the prosecutor actually carries cases.
Exactly.
That is probably the best way to build trust is by proving it.
Exactly. I agree with that.
I have a question, but I want to just say this to our panelists. If you all have any questions, go ahead and put those down here in the chat and we can try and get those answered for you. But my question is, this is a different type of a question, but there are families that are in victims and everything that are incarcerated and they don't have money for bond and bail and things like that. They don't have money for anything like that. Is there a way that these families can find support, or is there a way that they can come up with some type of funds in order to get themselves released? Or is there any support like that in Kansas City?
So the question is about bail bonds and when bail bonds are tied to a dollar amount. So the first thing I'll say is that tying bail bonds to money is a problematic system. The only other system that we know to do is to tie it to a presentation of evidence that shows someone maybe is not safe for release. So you're showing that they are a flight risk, demonstrating to the court they are a flight risk by some evidence, or demonstrating to the court someone's likelihood of causing more harm, sometimes to victims or witnesses on pending cases. And what I found is systems that moved to that, away from a money bail system and to a hearing system, actually resulted in higher and longer rates of incarceration pre-trial. So I continue to watch that to see if what other system can we adopt that would be better? Because it is true then, right? You tie money to a system, then you've already classed people out of justice. And these are hard, they're really hard decisions to make. In Jackson County, our jail facility is pretty small, and we've always had kind of a low number of jail beds. To give you an example of that, we have about 800, that's a little more than we actually have, about 800 jail beds that are available. And that is for all of Jackson County, which is about 750,000 individuals. In Kansas City alone this year, we'll have 170, I think right now we're at 170 murders. Of course, not all of those are solved, but sometimes we charge more than one person for a murder. And it takes probably a couple of years to get someone to trial. So and then maybe you start at murder and then you move down to assaults, maybe people who were shot by a bullet but survived. Those are called assaults, robbery with gun, rape, child molestation, domestic violence, DWI, driving while intoxicated, especially, habitual folks. And we're so upside down on kind of just grading those offenses. There is not room, and there has not been room in that jail for someone on a drug offense or maybe a property crimes offense. That jail space is not there. So the money system is not really tied to those individuals. It's tied to people, at the higher violence rates. And again, I don't know what the better system is. I think we need to find a different way, though, than tying money to the criminal justice system on bonds.
So you work for a company, like I was saying earlier, called Combat, and Combat is a huge supporter of Hype. And like I said, we really appreciate you guys. Can you talk to us a little bit about what Combat does for the community?
Yeah, Combat is, I didn't really know this until I was the elected prosecutor to understand the value of Combat in this community. It is a 1/4-cent sales tax that is assessed for when you buy things throughout Jackson County. And then that 1/4-cent sales tax goes into a fund, and it helps fund some basic services in community, like drug treatment. It funds our drug court. It funds part of the prosecutors in my office, part of the jail, and part of police. but the majority of it goes toward programming in the community. And so we're able to fund a lot of drug treatment, a lot of crime prevention, and we can try, it makes us a little bit more creative than other communities about trying different things. I think it's the difference between this city, Kansas City, and our sister city in St. Louis, whose violence rates are just a whole lot higher. They have the same gun laws I have. They have the same kind of, general problems that my city has. But our violence, while it's high, and our violence is high, it never reaches that level, as you see in St. Louis, just the other side of the state. And I really credit combat, as being one of those factors and a key factor that does lower our overall crime rate, because it gives another pathway to people outside of incarceration, and outside of the criminal justice system, to seek help and get help.
Exactly. A way to kind of, instead of throwing a Band-Aid on somebody, really trying to heal them in the city as well.
One
Well,
of our, I'm sorry, go ahead, Josh.
No, you go ahead. I think I was about to say the same thing you were going to.
I was just going to say, one of our panelists, her name is Elvia, she wanted to say, she wanted to tell the prosecutor, thank you for all of your work. So,
wow.
And we also have a question here. What advice would you give someone who feels they have been targeted by police, multiple incarcerations, and pulled over, like the police memorize their social security number?
Yeah, so I work with some community groups that deal with this particular issue, and they're trying to think of ways where they can amplify their system, and they can amplify how, what kind of community resource they can be for this type of issue. One of those organizations that we use that the community gets to use is Ad Hoc Group Against Crime. It is an organization that does accept what we call an OCC complaint against the police department. And I would highly encourage filing an OCC complaint, although it is an imperfect system. It is a system. It's something that we have. Now, I have a lot of complaints about that system. The biggest complaint I have is that I never get those complaints.
Oh, wow.
I never get to see them. So I'm like, well, if I never get to see the complaints, I can't investigate them. I can't look into them. And so that's one problem. And there are some other problems with our OCC process, but it does give you something that you can do as a citizen. And I would want to use that kind of, whatever systems are available to me in order to document someone that you think is problematic within the department. And it's important. So while I don't get those complaints now, I am working very hard to try and get police to turn those over to me so that I can review them and I can see whether or not there's a pattern of a police officer or there is conduct that I really want to look into and maybe potentially charge it.
All right.
Anybody else got questions out there? Don't be shy on me today, y'all.
Well, I have one. I just want to know, what do you think about the violence in our city, and why is our violence so high, and what can we do as a community? What can we do?
Look, our violence is high for a lot of reasons, but one sort of the overarching reason is that there's been this pretty systematic disinvestment in minority communities. And when you have a disinvestment, it means you can look at any community in America, it causes crime rates to go up. So what you need to have communities that have opportunities that everyone has, like an opportunity for a job, an opportunity for a really strong education. And I hate when people put out there, well, there's a lack of hope, in certain areas of the city, and I'm like, it's not a lack of hope. It's a lack of opportunity, because where there is opportunity, there will be hope. So those two things go hand in hand. You don't manufacture hope out of nothing. Hope comes from, there being something that you gotta kind of beat feet for it to go get. And so there have been other factors that are important in calculating why we have this higher homicide rate than some of our peer cities. Our gun laws have changed rather dramatically over the 20 years that I have been in the business of prosecution. And they've changed really dramatically over the last 3 to 4 years. So now pretty much anyone can carry in any way they want to carry at any time they want to carry without anyone asking any questions. So we should not be surprised when that is the state of our gun laws that we have more homicides. Not only do we have more homicides, we have more suicides by gun, and we have more accidental shootings by kids. So all of those things go together. It's not because we are more violent, it's because that opportunity, as a, kind of one of those negative opportunities, it's right there. And it causes people, when you get into a kind of a dispute with someone, temperatures rise quickly. And when there's that ready instrument is right there, it's just a trigger pull. It's just a trigger pull. It's impossible, to get the trigger pull back once you do it. But it can be a decision that's made really quick because the opportunity of a weapon is right at the ready. So, and there are other reasons, but those are the big ones.
Yeah. We got another question. Cassandra Wainwright says, you have said that our systems are not the best and need to be changed, especially in law enforcement. What are some of the things the community can do to help spark the changes we know we need to see, especially as it relates to the Black community?
I think maybe I don't love that question, because I think the question should be more, what can the police do to change this dynamic? What can the police do to change this relationship? And I don't want to just pick on the police. I will also pick on myself. What can the prosecutor do to change a lack of trust in community? And what can we all do to change that? So instead of always, relying on the community, what can the community do better? How can the community overperform here? I'd rather go to people who are paid, paid with taxpayer dollars to run whole organizations that have power and therefore then have all the opportunity to make this different. Now, community also needs to engage in that discussion, but wouldn't it make a lot more sense if we talked about, well, what can law enforcement do to make this better? Because there's a lot of things law enforcement can do to make it better. I don't have a whole lot of things I think I could ask community to do differently than what community already does. And but I do know things that a prosecutor can do, and that is, when I look at most recently, I looked at my drug data, and that is drug cases that the police bring into my office for a charging decision. I started looking at that because I simply wanted to know, amid COVID, what can my prosecutors not do anymore? Is there something that we could, what am I spending the majority of my time on? And sadly, we're spending a lot of time on drugs. And then I started looking at the drug data that we pulled with racial equity over the top of it. And I won't surprise too many people here to tell you that the disparity in those drug cases is gross. It's really, really gross. And what we also know about drugs is that they are used by all demographics really in the same amounts. And that means they're sold by people of all races as well. It's just, we should really start looking at enforcement strategies about drugs. How did those get set up in that way? And, why did police decide to, police drugs in certain communities in a particular way? I'm not getting a whole lot of response on that yet with police. So but I know what I can do. And that is, I'm really going to dramatically shift how I look at drug cases and what I do with them. Because whenever I file a felony case, it has a major impact on an individual's life. And then when I file hundreds and maybe even thousands of those, well, that now has a major impact on communities. So how can I do that different? Do we have to use the criminal justice system to address a drug possession case? The answer is no. I believe the answer is no. Now, I also believe that because I have about 60 years of history of us, trying to use the criminal justice system for addressing a drug possession case or a drug sales case. And, we haven't done very well. The criminal justice system has not done this very well. So I think instead of moving all of those cases into the criminal justice system, we can use combat to, instead of filing that felony, we can move that case into a treatment setting or some other kind of setting within the community in a pre-filing kind of diversion program. That's what I plan to do here in Jackson County because I also want to address racial equity. And I don't know how else to do it, but push those communities into a setting where there will be a lot less harm done by just addressing the underlying conduct that led to that drug possession, rather than adding harm with a felony conviction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's real huge. Cassandra said, "Thanks for that response." That's exactly how she said. Great response to that question, and thank you.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead.
So, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. If you have gonna say something, I didn't want to cut you off.
I just think it should be leaders like me. I should be asked the question, what more can you do, Jean? What more are you going to do? Rather than what more is community gonna do? What more can community do? I just don't think that's the right place to look. And you should also ask your police chief that. What more can my police chief do? What more should we demand that he do? What about my sheriff? What more can he do? And other players in the system, because those are the people with power and influence, and they're also paid by all of you all, to hold these jobs. And that's where it belongs. That's where that question belongs. It's really not on community to do more.
Exactly. Well, Miss Peters Baker, we sure appreciate you again. Congratulations on your reelection. I know that was exciting for you. And thanks for what you're doing for the community and trying to look at it in a different aspect and really get this system fixed the way we all really would like to see it.
You got it. Happy to do it.
Yes, ma'am. We'll talk to you later. Thanks again.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. All right. Next up, we have another special guest. You want to introduce her, Kalisha?
Yes. So we have Miss Sharon Powell on the line with us. She's the mother of legend Taliferro. She's gonna come on and tell her story for us. But first, I think we have a video.
I'm Sharon Powell. I am legend Taliferro's mother. I want to thank God for giving me the strength to withstand today. Operation Legend is not to harass, it's not to harm or to hurt. It is to help investigate unsolved murders, and which one of those happens to be our innocent 4-year-old son. This operation is personal to us. We want justice for our son and others. We have to take a stand in our communities and speak up to help this operation be successful. My one and only child who fought through open heart surgery at 4 months is gone due to senseless gun violence. Children are supposed to be our future, and our 4-year-old son didn't make it to kindergarten. I stand here today as a mother fighting against violence for my son, Legend Taliferro. My family and I support Operation Legend, and we strongly want our community and everyone else behind us. Thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate all the efforts. One thing about Legend, he was exciting. He loved basketball. He was a ball of joy. And I want his legacy to live on, and I want us to continue to fight against violence and also get justice for my son and others. So with this operation, I want it to be successful. So if every community can reach out to that hotline, if you know any information about any murder, that would be great. And also to keep carrying on this legacy.
Man, that was deep. Welcome, Miss Sharon. How you doing today?
You're on mute.
I think you muted.
All
There you
right.
There we go.
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Thank you. It's definitely a pleasure to have you. And first and foremost, our thoughts and prayers go out to you and your family. And I know it's not the easiest thing to go through.
No, not at all. But with the support of my family and friends and the community is a little weight off my shoulder a little bit, but it's not easy at all. I can definitely
Yeah. So tell us about Legend. I know you said he was a pretty cool kid and he liked basketball.
say. Yeah, he was a really cool kid. He loved basketball. I think we watched Space Jam every day for years, which is weird because everybody asks, well, how did he know anything about Space Jam? I'm like, I don't know. But he's been watching Space Jam since he was about 9 months, and we watched it all the way up until he passed. He was really smart. He was fun. Um, he enjoyed being around everyone. He liked the outside. And like I said earlier, he did survive open heart surgery at 4 months. He was diagnosed with a heart condition at birth. And so we had to do an open heart surgery at 4 months. And he was currently going to have another one. Um, it was called tetralogy of Fallot. It's like four different heart defects in one. So it was pretty it was a lot. Just say that.
Yeah.
So with that being said, he was a heart survivor, 4-year heart survivor on June 16th, 2020 before he passed. So that's why the Heart Association is a real big part of our life because that was a big part of his life. But yeah, he was definitely a ball of joy and he was a lot of fun. Everybody he was around, he touched, and anybody can tell you a funny memory or something. He made sure he spoke what was on his mind. He didn't
Yeah.
hold back at all. So yeah, he was a pretty cool kid.
That's what's up. Is there anything you can tell us about that day?
Um he actually what's crazy is that he actually called he has an iPad and he FaceTimes everybody. So he FaceTime his grandpa, his grandma, and then I think I was the last person he spoke with. And I had asked, he just had a little brother. His dad is married and they had just had a little baby, and his name was Ocean. His name is Ocean. And so he actually told me, said, Mom, I want to stay with my dad because I want to stay here with my brother because his brother lives in Wichita. So me always, I'm a very family oriented person. I have plenty brothers and sisters. So I'm like, yeah, spend time with your little brother. So because that was his, he could not wait for his brother to be here. So I wouldn't take that joy away from him. So he was with his dad and them, and they were his dad actually lived in Wichita at the time, so they were just there for the weekend, and his dad was just gonna drop him off to daycare before he left back off to Wichita. And then the situation happened about, I say, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I got the call. um and we rushed to Research Hospital because that was the closest hospital to Citadel. But then they
Mhm.
like, okay, we're gonna transport him to Children Mercy. So with them transporting, they don't transport people without them being stable. So in my mind, he was stable. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, we're gonna get through this. Let's get to Children Mercy, and he never comes. And then we had to go back to Research, and then they let us know that he didn't make it. Um, but the hardest thing is that his dad and his stepmom actually had to drive him to the hospital. So he actually was still alive when he actually was still alive, and he was just slowly shutting down because he was shot in the face. Um, which I really didn't get to see that portion of it. All I was able to see was him. When he got cleaned up and placed in a casket. I seen that, but he was shot in the face. So he didn't instantly die. He wasn't in pain, but he slowly passed away at Research. So it was really hard. you know, a heck of a day. I can say that day, night, and you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty bad.
Sharon, so this is Monica, and we actually met the day that your son passed. So a lot of people don't know. So I have one role here with the group as
You
a
got
like
more than one role now.
I have more than one role, but I'm also the executive director and founder of Healing Pathway. We are one of the volunteer organizations that's been in the city since 2011. And we've served over 1,000 children that have lost parents, caretakers, and siblings to homicide. And one of your church members, your mom's church members, asked that I come and meet with you that day. And I think the thing, and it gives me this lump in my throat, that stands out about that day is that there was an Amazon delivery truck. You had just ordered toys that day for your baby, and it was rough. It was rough. It was rough, and so for me, when we look at, here we are in a city with 170 homicides.
Mhm.
People forget that behind each one of those victims, there's a co-victim. There are mothers, there's fathers, I'm looking at Legend's brother, Ocean, mom's, it said he's watching this, so there's baby Ocean, and there's other people that are connected to Legend that are impacted by this. And then there's us that never knew your story, and we're impacted, and we're impacted by the trauma. Just tell people how, and I know the question came up in our chat earlier, and I wanted to save it for this moment, how important getting the mental health services, and how important has that been for your family to go through this process?
Um, this has been very important. I started counseling really soon. I started as soon as I was able to, because mentally, this is a battle. I can definitely say that, but the issue that hurts me the most about mental is that the guy that is incarcerated for my son's murder is somebody that my son actually knew and had a relationship with. So in my heart, it's I don't have mentally, I don't have I'm angry, but at the same time, my heart is not, I can't be angry. I'm angry, but I don't know if I'm explaining this right. It's hard because at the end of the day, it's a lose-lose situation. Um, and I know that young man really did have a relationship with my son. It was not intentionally for my son, but because he was angry and he took his anger, I like Miss Baker stated earlier, of when you're angry and the first thing you have, or you have that possession of a firearm, and that's what you use to express your anger. That's what we need to, I know they asked about what can we help with in community, but we have to figure out why are we so angry, and that's why is that our outlet for our mental to express our anger. Because that young man was 22 years old. He has no prior convictions, no police record, anything, and now you have messed up your whole life.
Whole life.
So to me, it's like I said, it's a lose-lose situation. So as a community, and that's why when I speak about Operation Legend, it's more of a community of we need to help our community for our mental health and holding people accountable for things that most likely is wrong. And
Mhm.
so for my family, mentally, we're just always together and trying to, a lot of people don't know um how to go about this situation in my family, because this is really hurtful, because like I said, my son was a joy to everybody, and I was the parent to make sure everybody knew my son. So every barbecue, every family function, birthday party, we were there. So everybody knows my son, everybody, all the children. I think that's probably the hardest thing that we're going through now, is that children love to be around me and including my son. So when they come around, they ask about him and they want to see and talk to him. But that's probably the hardest thing for my family, is to have all their kids ask us about it. And uh and that's probably the hardest thing for me, is to be around. But I enjoy being around kids, because I'm just like, I love children. Like I wanted to be a teacher at a point in time until I had my son and realized I can't handle more than one at a time. But yeah,
Yeah.
like it's really a mental thing. And like I said, if I didn't start counseling early, I could be very much more angry than I am. and I could take my anger and it could have went to a whole different level with just being angry, which that's why I had to learn and mentally just sit down and cope and make sure I don't take my mentals and take my anger overboard just because I was angry in a sense. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know we talk about a lot. So there's two important things that you touched on was one, the importance of mental health treatment. The other thing for me and for we have so many young people on our group tonight listening is the impact that it has on the children. So Legend had a lot of little cousins. I mean, you have a big family. I was there. You have a lot of little cute little ones running around. What has that done for them? I mean, are they fearful now? Because I know what I see, but I want to know your experience from being in your situation. How does that impact the little people that says, well, what happened to my cousin?
Um I have bonus kids. My boyfriend has daughters, and they I think I get more communication with them because I see them more often. And so I have a older one of them is 6, and she has dreams, and it's hard to explain to a kid exactly what happened. The most thing only thing I can really say is he's in heaven, and he's it's really hard to explain, and all they do is ask about him. He has basketball partners, little cousins and stuff, and they just it's really hard. It's one thing that's probably the hardest thing is try to explain, because they don't understand. Who at 4 years old or 5 years old can say they lost their 4-year-old friend or 4-year-old cousin, and they actually understand. They not understanding fully, they just know he's not there. So yeah, it's a rough. My little cousin came over yesterday, and he's 2, and the first thing he asked me is, "Where's Legend?" And then he said, "Never mind, I'm gonna talk to him later." And it's like they really miss him, and it's really hard. It's one thing that they were not probably understand until they get a little older. Um, but yeah, Christmas and all of that is kind of it's hard with all the holidays coming up, and my family is so oriented and all the kids run around, so it's really hard to explain it to the children. It's so hard.
Yeah.
We have a question for you in the chat. It looks like Rance, one of our panelists, has put on here, our participants. Hi, I see how strong you are talking about Mr. Legend. What advice would you give to a young parent who has lost a child to violence?
I would definitely say get counseling. That's the first thing I would say. And always stay open-minded to the people around you, and accept the support. And one thing I don't fall into you it's easy to fall in depression, so I can't say don't, because it could possibly happen, but learn how to cope through it, which with counseling, that's what's helping me cope through it. Because sometimes you have to put it on the shelf so you won't get depressed and go because once you get depressed and start piling it on, it's harder to get out of. So I would say, and I don't know how religious some people are, but prayer works. I pray a lot to get me through. The last 2 nights I was able to go to sleep with all the lights off. Usually I can't sleep without a TV on or a light, but I was able to, and I feel like that's an accomplishment to me because I know people are like, you're not going to sleep with the lights on. I mean, with the lights off, but that was accomplishment to me because I can't go to sleep without the lights being off, with the lights being on, without a light on or a TV. And then always, I guess just try to stay as positive as you can. Don't allow negative thoughts to bog you down, because that would definitely help drag you into depression. You let a lot of negativity, because at a point in time I was saying it's my fault, because that's always the main thing as a parent. You feel like you have to protect your children, and when something happens like this, you feel like you didn't protect your child. So don't let the negative thoughts just don't let the negative thoughts keep you in drag you into depression, because it could possibly happily do that. So just continue to pray, stay positive. Make sure you can, if you don't have a good support system, please reach out. It's different support groups, it's different people out here that's willing to be there to listen and to just allow you to cry on their shoulder. Just reach out to support. Don't try to do anything by yourself, because that's gonna make it even worse by you trying to um trying to stay by yourself and be in a closet by yourself. You have to get support. You have to pray. Try to stay as positive as you can, and that's the best way I can. The best advice I can give.
Right. And we
That's
talked
good
about
advice.
that day, the day, that we met, and I said that there's no script to any of this. There's nothing, there's no perfect way of healing. There's no perfect time or end to the sadness. Some days are going to be good days and some days are going to be bad days. But it's okay for us. And even as a community, we pride ourselves on being so resilient when we're impacted by severe trauma. And but it's okay to say, I'm not okay today. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not Superwoman, not Superman. I need to go lean on someone. I have to talk to someone. And just like you said, finding that safe space, finding that person you can trust. And we can slowly get to the root of some of these really deep rooted issues. Like you talk about anger and trust it's about reaching out. It's about saying, I'm human. I'm not having a good day. I need to go talk to somebody. I'm angry. I'm upset. Those are real feelings, and it doesn't make you abnormal. And I think that we need to understand that and kind of get rid of that stigma, because that's what we see a lot. And we talk about that here all the time is how do we get rid of that stigma so we can begin to heal and be healthy to function and be able to resolve our issues with each other and take care of ourselves.
You mentioned Operation Legend. So a couple quick questions on that. First, how was it going to the White House and meeting Trump? And then what do you feel like Operation Legend is doing to help out with the community?
All right, so I guess that is like the biggest question I get every since I
I
came back
bet.
from Washington. To be truly honest with everybody, you only the media puts out what they want you to hear. They're not gonna put out every single thing that actually happens. So with Trump, I'm not a big politic person. I don't I'm just not all into it. I know some things, I know certain things, I'm just not that into it. But
Mhm.
I went out there for a mission. It was for my son, and my mission was to bring awareness to what's going on and how hurtful and harmful it is. And we are what people are going through everywhere, not just me, but we have women and men everywhere going through the same thing I'm going through. But at this time, I had a platform to show the pain. So I took that platform and I made sure it was shown. So with him, he wasn't, they told me when I got there, once he knew I was coming, the whole vibe of the White House was different for the whole week until I got there. They said he was different, the mood was different, everything was different. And like I said, it's something about representation, and everybody tell me what God has for you is for you. So at that moment, that's what God wanted me to, where I needed to be. And that's what the resemblance of that, the Trump and the office, everybody, it wasn't about politics at that moment when I
Exactly.
was there. When I met Trump, he didn't, it wasn't, he was actually genuine. And people can say, oh, he can turn that off and turn that on. But when you have a certain feeling in your gut, I'm already emotional. I'm already emotional wreck because of the situation. But for that feeling to have, okay, he does have some type of sympathy for what I'm going through. And I think everybody has some sympathy. It's not always about a racial thing. It was about a child losing their life. And I think
Exactly.
once we get over that hype of everything, they only brought you here because they just want to put a black woman on, if we get over that stigma, everything is not always about race. Sometimes it's actually somebody that has some sympathy for what's going on for that situation. So um yeah, it was not a bad situation. I did what I had to do in honor of my son. And Operation Legend, on the other hand, a lot of people thought it was gonna be oh, all black people are gonna be getting arrested all the time. It was just like the worst stigmas of the whole operation, and that was not what it was. And so they came in, which if anybody that really knew politics know that every election season we have a sweep. This time it just had a name to it. So with the situation, it brought more attention to what was going on. Most of the people that were arrested through Operation Legend were already on a list to be arrested. They just had more manpower and had more access to get to them. It wasn't, most of the people were not somebody that, oh, let me just randomly pick a guy off the street and pick him up. That wasn't what it was. And they did solve multiple murders. No, they didn't solve all of them, but they did solve some murders, and arrested a few people. No, they haven't put everything out to the media of what was done, but it has been a lot of multiple arrests. But with our city, I noticed that our murder rate is still going up. So, like I said, it could have been. I mean, I'm not sure exactly. I think we didn't take heed of it like we should have. I think we had this negative vibe about it to where we didn't allow it to access what it possibly could have access, because we were so negative about it and wasn't understanding the value of it. And a lot of us don't want to hold our people accountable for what they have done. So we prefer to say, "Oh, you just arresting this person, that person, or Black people," whereas we just got to hold each other accountable. It's not about, like I said, it's not about race. It's not about anything. It's about holding people accountable for their actions. And that's just how life is. You're supposed to be held accountable for your action. And a lot of people don't want that to happen. And then also a lot of people don't want to, if they know something, they don't want to speak about it. That's our major issue. If you know something, speak about it, especially if you know a kid died in that situation. Speak about it. There is no reason for you not to say anything where a kid lost their life. A kid that, like, for example, my situation, nobody held back. No, everybody that had a clue, anything that was new, they made sure they spoke about it. So I would say everybody need to do that about every situation. We have to hold people accountable for their actions, even if it's an accident, if it wasn't. Because in reality, I really honestly don't think that was meant for my son, but it happened. And he was held accountable for his action. No matter if because that young man knew my son, he still was held accountable, is going to be held accountable for his action, no matter what. So that's with Operation Legend. To me, everybody was just so negative about it, and we insert ourselves into certain circumstances that we shouldn't insert ourselves in, instead of just holding people accountable for what they've done.
Well, we want to thank you for your courage. We want to
Definitely.
thank you for your strength. We want to thank you for sharing your son with this entire community, this world. We all love your baby. Anybody that's, I mean, I found myself watching your videos of your baby online. I mean, I was just like, wow, what a personality. What a personality. And just thank you for everything that you're doing. And we just appreciate you, but we're just sorry that this has happened. We're sorry, and we've got to do better. And we always end our groups on our Tuesday nights, and we welcome you to come back, and we welcome our guests that are on tonight to come back. We always want to end by saying that if you need help, reach out. We have a phone number that's on here if you need help just processing through your feelings. Please call area code 816-531-4683, extension 10. That's 816-531-4683, extension 10. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank y'all.
You
Thank
stay
you.
strong.
Thank
I
you.
am. Thank you.
All right. See y'all next week. Thanks for
Right.
coming, y'all. 6 o'clock Tuesday. You can come back if you want to too, Sharon.
Okay.